The first time the sky spoke to Liam, he was 9 years old and standing on the frozen surface of Lake Arrow, a small oval of ice tucked behind the spruce trees at the edge of Northbrook, Ontario. Northbrook wasn't the kind of place that ever made the news. It was a cluster of streets pressed between a railway line and a stretch of dark forest. Winters were long, summers were short, and if you weren't careful, the wind would steal your breath right out of your chest. But Liam liked it that way. The quiet suited him. He was strange, and everyone knew it. Teachers called him distracted or sensitive. Kids at school called him Liam the weirdo. His parents called him our little dreamer, which sounded nice. But it wasn't meant as a compliment when his father said it with a sigh. After another call from the principal, Liam didn't talk much. He watched. He listened. He noticed how icicles ever grew exactly the same way twice. He noticed how the snow over the lake made tiny ridges, like frozen waves in an invisible sea. And more than anything, he noticed the silence, or what should have been silence, on that January afternoon, when the sun was a pale coin trapped behind clouds and the snow squeaked under his boots. He realized the quiet wasn't quiet at all. It was full of whispers. They came like threads of sound, woven through the wind. At first he thought it was just his imagination, but then one of the whispers said something that made his heart stop. He heard his own name. Liam. He turned so fast that his scarf slapped him in the face. The lake was empty except for him. The snowbanks loomed at the edges, and the trees creaked and shifted in the wind. But there was no one there. Liam, don't move, the voice whispered, almost lost in the gust that followed. He froze. The sound seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once, from the sky, from the ice beneath his boots, from the air in his lungs. It wasn't like a human voice exactly. It was too soft and too clear at the same time, as if someone were speaking right inside his bones. Who's there? Liam whispered, his breath curling in tail clouds. No answer came in words. Instead, a feeling pushed into his mind, a sharp, bright warning that wasn't his own thought. His body reacted before his brain caught up. He took one step sideways. The ice behind him groaned. He heard it crack. A spiderweb of fractures shot out where he had been standing a second before. The ice slumped and dipped, and a dark oval of water welled up like an opening eye. Liam stumbled, arms pinwheeling. His boots slipped. For a heartbeat the world tilted. Gray sky, white snow, black water. Then he landed hard on his knees on thicker ice, snow dusting his gloves. He stared, panting, as the whole whitened and thin shards of ice collapsed into the water, bobbing once before sinking. His heart hammered so loudly that it drowned out the wind. The whispering, too, vanished. Only the distant caw of a crow broke the silence. If I didn't move, he thought, if I stayed there he would have gone through. He would have disappeared into that dark, freezing water. He stayed kneeling for a long time, fingers numbing inside his wet gloves. His brain buzzed with a single, impossible idea. Something had warned him. Something in the air, in the sky, in the cold itself. Eventually he scrambled to his feet and half ran, half slid back to shore. He didn't look back at the broken ice. He didn't want to see it. Instead he clambered up the snowbank, panting, and trudged along the familiar path toward home. The houses of Northbrook hunched low to the ground, roofs heavy with snow, chimneys breathing pale gray smoke. Liam's house, a two-story blue one with peeling paint and a crooked satellite dish, sat near the end of Maple Lane. The front steps were buried in snow, but he knew where the boards groaned and creaked underfoot even when he couldn't see them. He stamped his boots on the mat and pushed open the door. Warm air, thick with the smell of tomato soup and laundry detergent, wrapped around him. Somewhere upstairs his little sister, Emma, was singing off-key. Hockey commentary murmured from the living room TV. "You're late," his dad called from the couch. "You lose track of time again, kiddo." Liam opened his mouth, then closed it. How was he supposed to say, "Actually, the sky told me to move or I would have died"? His father already thought he had too much imagination. "Sorry," he muttered instead, tugging off his boots. He took 3 steps down the hallway, and then he heard something that made him stop. It was his father's voice. But his father hadn't spoken, not out loud. Anyway, the words slid into Liam's mind like a thought that wasn't his. They were clear, shaped, complete. "He always looks like that, like has somewhere else. I don't know what to do with that bull." Liam froze. He didn't know how he knew those words were his father's thoughts, only that he did. They had his father's quiet heaviness, the tired stretch of someone who had worked too many shifts and paid too many bills. He turned to look into the living room. His father, still in his uniform jacket from the warehouse, sat hunched on the couch, one hand around a mug, the other holding the TV remote. He had that line between his eyebrows again, the one that deepened when he was worried. He didn't seem to notice anything unusual. But as Liam watched him, another thought floated through the air like a bubble. I should spend more time with him. Hockey. Maybe, but I'm just so tired. Liam's breath hitched. The words didn't come from his ears. They came from the space between his father's face and his own eyes, as if the very air carried them. Dad, Liam said. His father glanced up, the line between his eyebrows smoothing slightly. Yeah, buddy, did you say something? I said you were late. He frowned. You okay? You look like you've seen a ghost. Liam swallowed. No. I mean yeah, I'm fine. His father's next thought was a quick flicker, but Liam caught it anyway. He lies like his mother, just to keep the peace. The words stung even though he knew they weren't meant to be heard. He turned away before his father could see his face and headed for the kitchen. The whispers stayed with him all evening. At first it was just snatches. His mother's mental grocery lists while she stirred the soup. Emma's tangled daydreams about unicorns and glitter. Even the cat's vague impressions of warm places and food. The sound wasn't like a crowd of voices shouting. It was more like tuning a radio and picking up faint stations wherever he turned his attention. If he focused on one person, their thoughts grew clearer, faster, deeper. If he pulled his focus back, they faded into a soft murmur, like distant traffic. Liam lay in bed later that night, staring at the glow-in-the-dark stars on his ceiling, and tried very hard not to panic. It started on the lake, he told himself. The voice that saved me, the crack in the ice, and then this. He wasn't sure where this ended. Was it just hearing thoughts? Or was there more? The lake had whispered first. Not a person. Not a mind he could see. Something bigger. He remembered the feeling that had pushed him to step aside. The sharp burst of warning that wasn't exactly in words. That had felt different from what he heard around his family. Older, colder, like the wind itself had grabbed his shoulders. He didn't have a name for it. He only knew that it sat somewhere above and behind everything else, like the sky over the town. Maybe I hit my head, he thought. Maybe I fell and now my brain is broken. The whisper of his own thoughts sounded normal, tired, frayed around the edges. The air didn't answer. The ceiling didn't speak. For a few seconds, everything was quiet again. And then softly, faintly another thought brushed against him, as if it had drifted across half the world to land in his room. Someone was afraid. He didn't know who. He only caught flashes of shape running down a dark street, a door slammed shut, hands shaking as they tried to fit a key into a lock. The fear was sharp, metallic, tasting like pennies on his tongue. He gasped and sat up in bed. The vision snapped like a broken wire. His heart climbed into his throat. He wasn't just hearing his family. He was hearing someone else. Somewhere else. Someplace dark and distant. Stop, he whispered. Please stop. The fear receded. The night settled. Somewhere, a plow rumbled past, scraping the road outside. The glow-in-the-dark stars watched him silently from the ceiling. Liam hugged his knees to his chest and pressed his forehead to them. He knew he should tell someone. His parents, maybe, a teacher. But he also knew how that conversation would go. He imagined sitting in the guidance counselor's office, the smell of coffee and dry erase markers thick in the air, as she wrote down hallucinations and possible psychosis on her clipboard. He imagined doctors, tests, medicine. He imagined his father's disappointed silence on the drive home. No, he thought. Not yet. He would keep it to himself, at least until he understood it. The next week at school was a blur of noise. Snowbanks towered over the parking lot. Kids stomped slush off their boots in the hallway, hats and scarves dripping on the floor. The speakers crackled with announcements about cancelled outdoor recess and upcoming science fairs. Liam moved through it all like a ghost. He discovered quickly that he couldn't completely turn off whatever had woken up in his head. Thoughts clung to people like steam. If he brushed by someone in the hallway, he picked up sparks of what was in their mind: hunger, boredom, the lyrics to whatever song they had stuck in their head. Sitting in class was like trying to read a book in the middle of a dozen whispered conversations. Some thoughts were dull, floating lazily. Others were bright and sharp, like needles. He heard the boat to rows over worrying about his parents' divorce. He heard the girl in the front whisper to herself, "If I get one more answer wrong, I'll fail, I'll fail, I'll." He heard his teacher think, "I should have gone into accounting. At least numbers don't talk back," while she explained fractions. The hardest part was pretending he didn't know. Liam What's the answer to number 3? Miss Crowley asked. Chalk dust on her sweater. He blinked at the board. The numbers swam in front of his eyes. In his head, he heard her add silently, he hasn't been paying attention again. He swallowed. 1 3/4. She blinked. He saw her glance at his blank notebook. That's right, she said slowly. Good. Liam. He had no idea how he had gotten the answer. Maybe his brain had picked it up from her mind, the way he picked up the hum of a fridge in a quiet room. By lunch, his head throbbed. He sat alone at the end of a table in the cafeteria, poking at his sandwich. The smell of fries and tomato sauce mixed with the sour scent of wet boots and winter jackets. There were too many people in one place. Their thoughts filled the room like fog. Don't sit alone. Someone will see. Did I do the homework? He looked at me. Did he look at me? Mom's going to be mad if I don't eat this. I hate this school. I hate this town. I hate. He flinched as the last thought hit him like a slap. It wasn't directed at him, but it was so intense that it made his stomach twist. He glanced across the room. A boy from his class, Tyler, sat with a group of kids near the center tables. Tyler was tall for 11, with dark hair that hung over one eye. He laughed loudly, the sound a little too sharp. His friends were talking about a video game, waving their hands and arguing. But Tyler's thoughts surged like a storm underneath his easy grin. If I mess up one more time, that's it. Dad said that's it. He said I'm useless. I can't fail. I can't. Liam looked away quickly, guilt prickling his skin. He didn't want to know these things. He felt like a thief, a spy sneaking into people's private rooms. A tray clattered onto the table across from him. He glanced up, startled. Asmia LeBlanc sat down opposite him. She was in his class too, small and wide-eyed, with curly hair tucked under a toque even indoors. Hi, she said, popping the top off her yogurt. You're Liam, right? He nodded, wary. I never see you eat with anyone, she said. Do you like being alone, or did everyone just decide to be jerks to you first? In her head, he heard the quick flutter of anxiety. Please don't be mad. Please don't be mad. Just trying to be nice. I don't mind, he said. Being alone, I mean. Odd, she said, shrugging. Me. I like people, but only sometimes. Like fries. Too many and you get sick. She shoveled a forkful of fries into her mouth to prove it. He watched her for a moment. Her thoughts were busy but not loud, tumbling over one another in little loops. This ketchup is weird. They changed brands. Mom's working late again. Did I feed Luna? I should draw later. He found himself relaxing. Her mind felt different from the others. Not calmer, exactly, but clearer, like a stream instead of a crashing wave. Do you draw? He asked before he could stop himself. She lit up, eyes widening. Yeah. How did someone tell you? He shook his head quickly. You just look like someone who draws. Is that a thing? She said, grinning. Do I have artist written on my forehead or something? Not literally, he muttered. She leaned forward. What about you? What's your thing? He almost said, hearing voices and possibly going crazy. Instead he shrugged. I don't know. Everyone has a thing, she said firmly. You just haven't found yours yet. Or you're hiding it. Her gaze sharpened. You are kind of mysterious. In her head, he heard, maybe he'll think that's cool. Maybe he'll talk more. Not really, he said. You stare out windows all the time, and you don't talk. That's mysterious. She poked a fry at him. It's okay. I won't tell. He didn't mean to do it, but something in the way she said, I won't tell, made him push his awareness toward her. Just a little. It was like leaning closer to a radio to hear the words of a song. He saw, in a quick flicker, an image in her mind. A sketchbook page filled with scribbled faces, one of them his, looking out a window. The lines were quick but careful. Underneath, she had written in pencil, "The boy who hears the snow." Liam's stomach dropped. What is it? She stammered, startled. Why are you looking at me like that? You drew me, he blurted. Her mouth fell open. How did you? In your sketchbook, he said. By the window. You wrote. He stopped too late. Her chair scraped back. Her thoughts, a heartbeat ago like and tangled, snapped into sharp focus. How does he know that? It's in my room. No one's seen it. How? What are you? She whispered. He felt the whole cafeteria tilt. The noise of clattering trays, laughter, and shouted jokes faded into the background as his pulse thudded in his ears. I am sorry, he said, panic rising. I didn't mean to. He reached out, without thinking, for the one thing inside himself that felt like it didn't belong, the strange awareness that had opened on the ice, the space where the whispers lived. The world paused. Not completely. The fluorescent light still hummed, the clock still ticked, but slower, much slower. The motion around him smeared, like a video put on half-speed. Mia's hand was still halfway to her mouth with a fry. The ketchup droplet seemed frozen, in mid-drip. Liam's own breathing sounded too loud in the frozen air. He hadn't meant to do that. He hadn't even known he could. Everything was quieter now. The storm of thoughts had thinned into a faint murmur, like voices heard through a closed door. It felt easier to breathe. He looked at Mia. She had been about to stand up. Her eyes were wide, her cheeks flushed. He didn't know how much time he had like this, or what would happen when it ran out. But he knew one thing with sudden, fierce clarity. He didn't want her to be afraid of him. "Okay," he said softly, even though she couldn't hear him. "Okay, I'll fix this." He took a step back inside his own mind, the way you might step back from a cliff edge. He pictured a curtain falling between his awareness and hers. He imagined tying a knot around the loose thread of her thought about the sketchbook, pulling it away from what he had blurted out. It wasn't erasing her memory. He couldn't change the past. But maybe he could rearrange what she noticed. He focused on the moment he had said, "You drew me." He wrapped that phrase, a tight swirl of embarrassment, his embarrassment. Not hers until it blurred into the background noise of the cafeteria. Then he nudged one small idea to the front of her mind, carefully, gently. Has just guessing. He doesn't really know. The effort made his head pound. He felt sweat prickling on his forehead. His vision shook. He let go. The world snapped back into motion like a rubber band. The ketchup droplet fell. The lights buzzed louder. A shriek of laughter from the next table over stabbed at his ears. Mia blinked rapidly, looking dazed. I mean, that's kind of specific," she said, slowly. "You just guessed that I drew you. That's weirdly accurate." He exhaled, half laughing with relief. "You do draw me, though." She flushed. "Yeah, I like drawing people who look interesting. You always look like you're listening to something no one else can hear." He swallowed. "Maybe I am." She studied him for a second, then smiled. "Well, if it's ghosts or aliens or whatever, you'll tell me someday. Okay?" "Okay," he said. In her mind, the thought floated up. Has just a good guesser. Or maybe he saw me drawing once and I forgot. No big deal. He had done it. He had nudged her thoughts, changed the path they walked down. The realization made his stomach twist. Because if he could do it to her, he could do it to anyone. That night, the sky spoke again. Liam was at his bedroom window, staring at the snow drifting under the streetlights. Maple Lane glowed in shades of orange and gray. The world felt wrapped in a thick, cold blanket. He pressed his forehead to the glass. "Who are you?" he whispered. "What are you?" The wind had picked up, sighing around the corners of the house. Snowflakes tapped the window like impatient fingers. The sound inside his head changed. It wasn't like picking up someone's thoughts now. It was like a radio station he hadn't known existed had suddenly turned its volume up. 1,000 tiny impressions, each one as sharp and bright as a new icicle, crowded his mind. A fox slipping between trees, its paw silent on the snow, a plow's metal blade grinding against asphalt miles away. The distant rumble of a train, the slow, patient growth of frost crystals on an unheated window. He saw all of it at once, a web of movement and life stretched over the frozen landscape. "Liam," the whisper of the sky said. This time, the voice had shape. It was neither male nor female, neither young nor old. It was simply there, steady and cool, like the reflection of the moon on a lake. "You are awake." "I was always awake," he said, then winced at how stupid that sounded. "In the way that matters," the voice corrected gently. "Who are you?" he asked again. "I am what you touch when you step between seconds," it said. "I am the space where thought becomes wind and wind becomes word. I am the echo of everything that moves and breathes under these skies." "That doesn't help," he muttered. A hint of amusement rippled through the air. "Names are anchors. You may call me the weave." "The weave," he repeated. "The pattern connecting all living minds," it explained. "The quiet thread between the snow on your lake and the fear of a child 3 streets away. The thing you brushed when the ice tried to claim you. You warned me," he said slowly. "Yes. You were very loud. You called without knowing you were calling. You were in danger." I answered. "How was I loud?" "You are one of the shaped," the weave said matter-of-factly. "Your mind was born with open doors, where others have walls. You hear what they do not. You feel the lines that bind thought to thought." "The shaped," he echoed. Is that like a superhero? Or more like a mental patient? The weave was quiet for a moment. The silence was not empty, it was full of turning snowflakes. Humans make such strange distinctions, it said finally. You are a human who can move along the threads of the weave with less effort than most. That is all. Power is neither heroism nor madness. What you do with it chooses the name. But why me? I do not choose, it replied. The pattern does. A mind is born open or closed. Your world calls it talent, or disorder, or gift, depending on whether it likes the result. He thought of his father's tired face, his mother's gentle worry, his teacher's irritation. He thought of the principal's office with its framed inspirational quotes. They wouldn't call this a gift, he thought. He realized, with a start, that the weave had heard that thought too. But unlike human minds, it didn't tangle his feelings with its own. It simply hummed, acknowledging. Why are you talking to me? He asked. You stepped into the quiet between moments, it said. Few ever do, and fewer still at your age. You froze the surface only for a breath, but it was enough to catch my attention. You mean when I slowed time in the cafeteria? You walked along a thread so thin that most minds fall through it, the weave said. You will do it again. You will do more, if you live long enough. He swallowed. Live long enough. The world is not kind to the shaped, it said. Without cruelty or comfort. Some burn out, some are broken, some break others, and the world breaks them back. That's not encouraging, he muttered. I am not here to encourage, it said. I am here to answer. And to ask. He raised his eyebrows. Ask what? Why you pulled that girl's fear away. He stiffened. You saw that? I feel every tug on the threads within my reach, it said. You could have driven her away. You could have erased the moment. Instead you dulled her fear and left her curiosity. Why'd? Because I don't want her to be scared of me, he said. Too quickly. Is that all? He hesitated. And I guess I don't want to be alone. The weave's presence shifted, like a snowdrift changing shape around a buried stone. That answer matters, it said quietly. Lonely shaped become storms. Or abysses. They think only of filling their own emptiness. That you reach for connection, not control. It still felt like control, he said. I pushed her mind. I changed something. Yes, the weave agreed. That is why I am speaking to you now. You must learn to shape lightly. Shape lightly, he repeated. Like him holding something fragile. Yes, a mind is a spiderweb in the wind. You may walk across it, but step too hard, and it tears. You can never untear it. He shivered, though his room was warm. Can you teach me? He asked. For a while, the weave said. Until you no longer need teaching, or until you stop listening. Humans are brief. You vanish quickly. Thanks, he muttered. That's comforting. This time, the amusement that rippled through the sky felt almost like a smile. The weave did not speak every night. It came when the snow was heaviest or the wind was stillest, when the world felt balanced on the edge of something. In the days that followed, Liam learned 3 things. First, he learned to turn the nose down. The weave taught him how to imagine a dial in his mind, like the volume knob on his father's old radio. When thoughts from others grew too loud, he pictured his fingers turning the dial slowly, gently, until the voices faded into a distant hum. They were still there, like stars hidden behind clouds, but they no longer burned his eyes. Second, he learned to listen without drowning. Do not drink the whole river, the weave said once, when he staggered from the crush of thoughts in the school hallway. Sip from a single stream. Instead of letting every mind around him rush in, he learned to focus on one at a time, the way you might choose a single conversation to follow in a crowded room. He could listen to a teacher's explanation of long division, without also hearing 3 kids worrying about their lunches, to planning a prank, and one silently counting the number of tiles on the ceiling. Third, he learned that the threads between lines weren't just about thoughts. Emotions traveled along them too. One Thursday afternoon, he found Emma crying on the stairs, clutching her favorite stuffed bear. Her knee was scraped, but he knew as soon as he touched her shoulder that the real pain was somewhere deeper. He felt it through her like a shock of cold water, the sting of a mean comment at recess, the heavy lump of embarrassment in her chest. They said I was a baby, she sobbed, because I liked Teddy. They said him too old. He could have told her that those kids were stupid and that she was allowed to like whatever she wanted, but he knew words bounced off feelings like pebbles off ice. Instead, he took some of her pain. It wasn't something he did on purpose, at least not at first. It was instinctive, like flinching when someone throws something at you. A thread ran between them, bright and taut. He reached along it and gathered some of the hurt into himself. It hit him like a punch. His eyes stung. His chest ached. For a second, he couldn't breathe. Emma sniffled, blinking. "It doesn't feel as bad now," she whispered, rubbing her knee. "Did you hug it away yet?" He croaked. "Something like that." He staggered to his room afterward and sat on the floor with his back against the bed, heart pounding. The ache inside him faded slowly, like a bruise turning yellow. "You must be careful with that," the weave murmured that night, when the snow tapped its fingers on his window again. "You cannot carry everyone's storms." "I know," he said, "but she's my sister. Storms that flood a stranger will drown you the same," the weave replied. "Even love has weight." "What am I supposed to do then?" he snapped, surprising himself. "Just listen to her cry and do nothing." "You are supposed to learn the difference between sharing and swallowing," the weave said. "Share her ache for a breath, so she knows she is not alone, but do not keep it as your own forever." "How?" he whispered. "By letting it go," it said simply. He wanted to shout that human feelings didn't work like that letting go wasn't something you could just decide and then do. But the weave already knew. It had touched 10,000 griefs and 10,000 joys in the winds over 1,000 winters. Instead of arguing, it taught him how to imagine his feelings like ice on a river, thick in places, thin in others. You could stand on some of that ice, slide across it, even carve words into it. But beneath it, the river still moved. You couldn't stop it. "Let the river carry what is not yours," the weave said. He tried. He wasn't always good at it. Some feelings stuck anyway, especially fear. Liam's first real test came on a day that should have been ordinary. It was late February. The snowbanks were beginning to melt, revealing layers of frozen footprints and lost mittens. The sky was the kind of gray that made you feel like you were living inside a giant, dirty bowl. School was dull. Lunch was lukewarm chicken nuggets, and Liam spent most of science class watching a droplet of water slide slowly down the window. After school, he walked home with Mia. They had fallen into an easy rhythm over the past weeks. She would talk about her latest drawing, a YouTube video she'd watched, the way her older brother snored, and he would listen, adding a comment here and there. Her mind was a splash of colors and shapes, full of half-finished ideas and sudden connections. Walking beside her always felt like standing next to a mural in progress. "And then my mom said, if I leave my sketchbook on the floor one more time, she's going to accidentally vacuum it up, which, like, you don't vacuum paper." But anyway, her voice stopped abruptly. Liam felt it before he saw it. A rip in the fabric of the street, a thread pulling too tight, too fast. Fear. Not his, not Mia's, someone else's, nearby. It surged across the weave like a wave. He stiffened. "Liam," Mia said. "What is it?" Up ahead, at the corner, 3 older boys were clustered near the bus stop. One of them had Tyler's jacket. Liam recognized the black and blue stripes, that the bow inside it looked smaller than usual, somehow, shoulders hunched. He heard Tyler's thoughts before he heard his voice. "Don't hit me. Don't hit me. I didn't say anything. I swear. I didn't. Just shut up." One of the other boys said, shoving him. "You think you can tell Mr. Dawson I was late because I was helping you with homework? What? You think you're special?" Tyler stumbled back, nearly slipping on a patch of slush. Liam felt his panic spike like a needle. His throat closed. "Hey," Mia called, without hesitation. "Leave him alone." Liam's stomach dropped. The 3 boys turned toward them. The nearest one, a broad-shouldered kid with acne along his jawline, narrowed his eyes. "Oh, look," he sneered. "It's the weird kid and his girlfriend." Mia flushed but didn't back down. "Just leave him alone," she repeated. "He didn't do anything." In her head, a dozen thoughts flashed at once. "They're bigger than me. I could get punched. Mom's going to kill me if I get in trouble. But it's not fair. It's not." The older boy took a step forward. "What? You gonna make us?" Liam felt the weave tighten around them like a drawn bowstring. Danger. The word wasn't spoken, but it thrummed in his bones. To Bo's anger, Tyler's fear, Mia's stubborn courage, they all pulsed along the threads, pulling at one another. He knew, suddenly, how this could go. He saw a flash of possible futures. Tyler falling, his head cracking against the curb, Mia shoved into the road, fists, shouts, someone dialing 911 with shaking hands. The weave hummed, waiting. Liam's heart hammered. He could walk away. That was one path. He could grab Mia's arm and drag her with him, pretend he didn't see anything, let the scene play out. He couldn't. He stepped forward before he even realized had moved. "Don't," he said. His voice sounded small in the wide winter air, but it carried a thread of something that wasn't entirely his own. "Just don't," the big kid snorted. "Or what? You'll stare at us." He laughed. The others snickered. Liam met his eyes and pushed. He didn't dive into the boy's thoughts the way he had with Mia. That felt too invasive, too raw. Instead, he reached for the surface, the place where the boy's thoughts brushed against the world. He caught the edge of a memory, a hand hitting a table at home, a voice barking, "Why can't you just behave for once?" The hot sting of shame. He seized that shame and held it up like a mirror. It was dangerous. The weave whispered caution, but he didn't stop. He took all the scattered moments when this boy had felt small in front of someone bigger, teachers, Terrence, maybe an older sibling, and gathered them into a single knot. Then he tugged. The boy flinched. His breath hitched. For a second, his confidence cracked. Underneath it, Liam saw a kid not so different from himself, desperate to not be the one on the ground for once. "What are you doing?" the boy snarled. "In not doing anything," Liam said steadily. "You are. And you don't want to." "Not really." He nudged one more thought into place, carefully, lightly. "This isn't worth it." The boy's gaze flickered to Tyler, then back to Liam. His hands clenched and unclenched at his sides. His friends shifted, thrown off by his hesitation. "We're just messing around," he muttered, suddenly sounding more tired than angry. "Come on, Tyler, stop being such a baby." He shoved Tyler's shoulder, but it was more of a nudge now. Then he turned away. His friends followed, shooting Liam and Mia confused, uneasy glances as they went. Liam felt their thoughts snag briefly on him. What's his problem? Did he do something weird? Whatever. "I don't care." Before they receded down the street, the weave loosened. The air felt less sharp. Tyler stood very still for a moment, breathing hard. Then he exhaled in a rush, shoulders sagging. "Thanks," he mumbled, not looking at them. "You didn't have to yet." "We did," Mia said firmly. "Bullies suck." In her head, the thought bounced around. That was amazing. How did they just back down? Did I look cool? I hope I looked cool. Liam didn't speak. His hands were shaking. Tyler glanced up, eyes catching Liam's for a second. Liam heard the quick, fleeting thought, "Maybe he's not that weird." Then Tyler hunched his shoulders and walked away quickly, boots splashing in the slush. Mia let out a breath and turned to Liam. "What was that?" she said. "He looked like I don't know. Like he'd seen a ghost." "I don't know." Liam lied. The weave did not scold him that night. It didn't praise him, either. Praise and scolding were human ways of shaping. "You stepped lightly," it said instead. Mostly, he echoed. "You showed him a mirror," it said. "You nudged his foot from one path to another. You did not break him. That is well. But you tasted his shame," it said. "And it tasted like power." He flinched. The weave had no eyes, but it saw. "I didn't like it," he said quickly. "It felt wrong. It felt strong." The weave corrected. "Humans love strength. You found that you could stop a fist without lifting your own. That is a dangerous sweetness. Do not grow addicted." "How do I not?" he whispered. "If I can help, how do I stop myself from always doing it?" "You are not the only thread in the pattern," the weave said. "If you pull too hard, you tangle others. Sometimes you must let the world stumble without you. Otherwise, you become the one who decides who stumbles at all." He thought of being able to reach into anyone's mind and twist. To make teachers forget homework, bullies forget anger, parents forget disappointment. The idea was dizzying. "I don't want to be that," he said. "Then you must ask, each time. Are my hands clean?" The weave replied. "Not from dirt. From ownership. Do you seek to serve your fear or someone else's good? Answer that, and you will know when to act." He lay awake a long time, the weave's words echoing in his head. Spring came slowly to Northbrook. The snowbanks shrank, leaving behind islands of dirty ice as surprising treasures. A blue mitten, a cracked plastic truck, a pair of sunglasses someone would definitely miss in June. The lake thawed at the edges first. The ice went from white to gray to the sickly translucent of old glass before finally breaking up, drifting in pale slabs toward the center. Liam kept his distance from it that year. He and Mia spent more time at her house once the sidewalks stopped being death traps. Her mother worked odd shifts at the hospital, so sometimes they had the place to themselves after school. Mia's room was small and chaotic, every surface cluttered with paper, pencils, markers, and half-finished projects. "You're my favorite alien," she announced one afternoon, sprawled on her bed with a sketchbook balanced on her knees. "I decided. I'm not an alien," he said, leaning against her desk. Her thoughts flared with wicked glee. He didn't say, "I'm not weird." He only denied the alien part. "Fine," she said cheerfully. "You're my favorite cryptid, like Bigfoot, or a lake monster that wears hoodies." "That's better," he asked. Obviously, she squinted at her drawing. Hold still. He had gotten used to her drawing him. At first it had made him self-conscious. The way her eyes flicked from his face to the page to his hands and back, but had realized that when she drew, she wasn't judging him. She was exploring him, like he was a new landscape. "What's this one?" he asked. "You sitting there," she said. "You always look like you're about to leave your body." He thought of all the times he had actually left, in a way, in the cafeteria, on the street corner, in his room at night with the weave humming in his bones. He wondered what he looked like to someone who couldn't see those threads. "What if I am?" he said. "How? About to leave my body," he said. "What if I just float out? I'd grab your ankle and yank you back," she said immediately. Her thoughts flickered with an image of him, as a balloon drifting toward the ceiling. She drew a little string on her page, just for herself. He smiled. Something in his chest warmed. "You okay?" she asked, glancing up. "Yeah," he said softly. "I think so." Not every day was a test. Sometimes his abilities were small things. He nudged his father's memory of where he had left his keys when he was late for an early shift. He gently soothed the jagged edge of Emma's fear before a dentist appointment. He caught a teacher's angry impulse before it turned into a shouted reprimand at a kid who had already been yelled at too many times that week. Sometimes, he did nothing. He watched Tyler struggle with his math homework and bit his tongue, choosing not to drop the answer into his mind. He heard the quiet thought in his mother's head, "We barely have enough for rent this month," and didn't reach for the threads of her manager's good mood the next day, even though he could have nudged it toward a race. "Why'd?" the weave asked once, curious, when he let a chance to help slip by. "Because," he chewed his lip. "Because if I fix everything, I become the reason everything is okay. And then what happens when I'm not there?" The weave hummed approval. "You are learning," he was. "Slowly. But towers, like seasons, bring storms eventually, and storms have a way of finding the tallest trees." The summer Liam turned 10, wildfires came to the forests north of Northbrook. They did not start near the town. They began far away, where a careless camper or a lightning strike found tinder in the dry underbrush. For weeks, the fires were just something on the news. Images of orange skies over distant towns, maps with colored blobs marking danger zones. Then the smoke reached them. It started as a faint haze on the horizon. The sky turned a strange, filtered blue. The sunsets went violent, spilling pink and red across the clouds. People stood on their porches in the evenings, staring. "Don't worry," Liam's father said, rubbing his shoulder. "Fires are far. We're safe here." The weave hummed at night, restless. "Fire is a thread, too," it told Liam. "It pulls on everything around it." "How bad is it?" he asked. "How good you are at numbers." It countered. "Bad," he admitted. "Then trust me when I say, bad enough," the weave replied. The air grew thicker. The smell of smoke seeped into their clothes, into the curtains, into Liam's pillow. People wore masks on the street. The school postponed its end-of-year field day. One morning, the principal announced that if the air quality didn't improve, they would close school early for the summer. The class erupted into excited whispers. No more math. No more early mornings. Liam didn't share their joy because he could feel the fire in the weave now. It wasn't a mind. Not exactly. Not like a person's. But it had a direction, a hunger. It leapt from tree to tree, roaring, and every time it did, a dozen smaller threads snapped. Birds' nests, animal dens, insects and roots and leaves too small for the news to mention. He lay awake at night, feeling the forest's pain shudder through the sky. "Can't you stop it?" he asked the weave. "I am not a hand," it replied. "I am a web. I feel what is tugged. I do not hold the matches." "But you can touch everything," he insisted. "You can reach minds, clouds, wind, and if I push too far in one place, something snaps in another." It said, "Balance, Liam. Even storms have rules." Humans did what they could. Planes dropped water. Firefighters in heavy gear carved trenches and soaked ground. People in threatened areas packed cars and trailers with whatever they could carry. Northbrook remained outside the evacuation zones. The news anchors said this over and over, their voices calm but tense. "We're not going anywhere," Liam's father said firmly. "We'll be fine." Liam wanted to believe him. Then, one night, the wind changed. He sat bolt upright in bed, heart pounding. It wasn't the smoke that woke him. It was the sudden, vicious pull through the weave. Fire leaped in a new direction, sprinting along dry grass, racing up old trees. Wind pushed it toward places it wasn't meant to go. He saw it in flashes that weren't exactly sight. A hillside igniting, a wooden fence catching, a deer bolting through undergrowth thicker than it remembered. And, faintly, under it all, the flicker of human minds, fear. Liam. The weave's voice was sharper than he had ever heard it. "Wake your family." He was already running. "Mom. Dad." His voice shook the house. Emma bolted upright in her room, his panic slamming into her through the thread between them. "What is it?" His mother gasped, stumbling into the hallway. Roe belted crookedly. "The fire," he said, breathless. It's coming closer." The wind changed. His father frowned, rubbing his eyes. "We would have heard something on the news, buddy. Go back to bed." A siren wailed outside. They all froze. The siren grew louder, joined by another. Red lights flickered against the ceiling as a fire truck roared down Maple Lane. Liam's father hurried to the window. "What the?" 3 minutes later, his phone buzzed. His mother grabbed it. Her eyes scanned the screen. Her face went pale. "It's an alert," she whispered. "Advisory evacuation. Wind shift. They're not sure if it'll reach town, but we should be ready to leave if." Emma squeaked. "If it gets worse," their father said, forcing his voice steady. "Okay, everybody take a breath. We're going to pack some bags. Just the essentials. We'll go stay at the community center if they say we have to. It'll be an adventure, okay?" His thoughts told a different story. How far is it? Do we have enough gas? Where are the cat carriers? Liam felt the weave vibrate with the movement of 100 minds in town, all waking up at once. Fear fluttered like 1,000 birds taking off from the same field. "Go pack a bag," his mother said, gripping his shoulders. "Clothes, toothbrush, whatever you can grab fast." He nodded, heart racing, and ran to his room. He didn't pack much. A couple of shirts, underwear, a hoodie. He shoved his sketchbook from Mia into the side pocket of his backpack without thinking. Then he stopped in the doorway, suddenly dizzy. The threads were too loud. It wasn't just his own fear now. It was his family's, his neighbors, the firefighters at the edge of town, the emergency planners staring at maps lit by harsh fluorescent lights. It all crashed into him in a wave. He staggered, grabbing the doorframe. "Liam," Emma's small voice floated down the hallway. He forced himself upright and turned. She stood there clutching Teddy, eyes huge. "Is our house going to burn down?" she whispered. He looked at her for a heartbeat. Her hair was tangled from sleep. Her lower lip trembled. A smear of glitter from some long-faded art project still clung to her cheek. He reached for her thread. Not to take her fear this time. That would drown him completely. Instead, he did what the weave had taught him. He shared it. He let his own fear wrap around hers, not heavier, not lighter, just together. A braid instead of two frayed strings. Her breathing slowed a little. "I don't know," he said honestly, "but we're not alone. Everyone's working on it. And we're going to be together, okay? Wherever we go." She swallowed. "Even Teddy?" He almost laughed. "Especially Teddy." He felt her manage a small, shaky smile. She reached for his hand. Their father's voice called from downstairs. "Kids, let's go." They piled into the car a few minutes later, the trunk hastily packed, the cat protesting from inside a carrier. The air outside was thick with smoke now. The streetlights glowed in a strange, muted halo. Cars were already lining the road, neighbors climbing into them, faces pale in the rearview mirrors. The community center's parking lot would fill quickly. As they pulled away, Liam looked back at their house. The blue paint looked grayer in the smoky light. The crooked satellite dish pointed toward a sky that wasn't visible. He felt something tug in his chest, a thread that ran from him to this place. Every corner of his room. The kitchen table. The squeaky step on the staircase. "Be careful," he told the house silently. The weave hurt him. "You cannot ask mercy from fire for wood," it said. "You can only ask it not to find it. Then move it," he said. "I am not wine," it replied. "But you talk to everything," he insisted, desperate. "You talk to people, to snow, to whatever you are. Talk to the wind. Talk to the fire, please. The weave was quiet. The car turned onto the main road, joining a line of red taillights stretching into the haze. In the distance, an orange glow pulsed against the horizon like a heartbeat. In every storm, the weave said slowly, there are small mercies. A gust at the right moment. A branch that falls before it can carry flame. I can pull a little at those threads. But there is a cost. What cost? Liam whispered. If I turn the wind aside from your town, it turns toward another, it said. If the fire slows here, it may run faster elsewhere. Balance. He felt sick. So if you help us, you hurt someone else, yes. Then don't, he said immediately, even though the word tasted like ash. Don't hurt someone else just for us. He expected the weave to argue. It didn't. We are not so different, it said quietly. You and I, we both pull on threads and count the consequences. Very well, Liam. I will not shift the storm for you. I will, however, whisper. To who? He asked. To those who can move their own hands, it replied. Somewhere, miles away. A firefighter glanced up at a plume of smoke and noticed a change in its shape a few seconds sooner than he otherwise would have. A dispatcher felt a sudden urge to check a secondary route that had been almost forgotten. A pilot in a water bomber trusted a hunch about where to drop his load. Small things, tiny choices. Threads. You are not helpless, the weave told him. Your mind touches mine. Mine touches others. Together, we can nudge without pushing. We can warm without choosing who burns. He closed his eyes and reached. He thought of every mind he could feel at once, the scattered, frightened people in cars around them, the focused determination of the firefighters, the steady hum of the emergency coordinators. Be careful, he whispered into the weave. Be smart. Don't be brave in the wrong way. Don't go down dead roads just because they're familiar. He didn't know if they hurt him directly. Maybe it only felt like a sudden, unshakable thought. Check that door again. Don't take that risk. Turn left instead of right. The night blurred into a string of moments. The community center's bright lights. Cots laid out on the gym floor. Children crying, then drifting into an easy sleep. Adults murmuring into phones. Volunteers handing out masks and bottles of water. Liam sat on a folding chair by the window, forehead resting against the cool glass, and listened. He listened to the fire's roar at the edges of the weave, to the groaning trees, to the sky's tense hum. He listened until, hours later, the pull began to slacken. The fire did not die, but it turned. Not away from all towns. Somewhere, someone would wake to bad news, but Northbrook, this time, remained on the right side of a line drawn by wind and chance and 10,000 small decisions. The evacuation advisory lifted in the early morning. People stumbled back to their homes, exhausted and grateful and guilty and not sure what to do with any of those feelings. Liam walked up Maple Lane with his family, backpack digging into his shoulders. Their house still stood. The satellite dish was still crooked. The paint was still peeling. A thin layer of ash dusted the porch, like strange gray snow. The air smelled burned but alive. His father unlocked the door with shaking hands. We're okay, his mother whispered, hugging him and Emma so tightly he could barely breathe. We're okay. We're okay. In her mind, a thought floated on a wave of relief. We were lucky. Luck, Liam thought, and the weave murmured. Luck is just the name humans give to patterns too big for them to see all at once, it said. Did we make this happen? He asked it later, lying on his bed in the smoky half-light. We made some of it, the weave replied. You, me. Those who listened to whispers they did not quite understand. Others made other parts. It is never only one thread. He thought of that, the pattern too big to see, and felt very small. But he did not feel powerless. There will be more storms, the weave said gently. Fire, fear. People who hurt other people because they cannot bear their own hurt. You cannot fix everything. You will break if you try. I know, he said. And he did. The night had pressed that lesson into his bones like a bruise. But sometimes, it continued, in one lunchroom, on one street corner, in one smoky town on one hazy night. A boy who hears the sky can make a difference big enough to matter, and small enough not to break the world. You make me sound important, he said, embarrassed. You are important, the weave replied. You are also one of billions. Hold both truths, and you will walk more carefully. He smiled into his pillow. Okay, he said. I'll try. That is all any thread can do, the weave said. Years later, people in Northbrook would still talk about the summer of the fires. They would remember the way the sky turned orange, and the taste of smoke in their mouths, and the strange, shared feeling that something unseen had gone right at just the right moment. They would not know about the boy who sat by the community center window whispering into the dark. They would not know about the mine above them, listening. But Liam would know. He was still strange. He still stared out windows too long and forgot to answer when people spoke to him. He still heard too much, felt too much. His powers grew with him, exploring new corners of the weave he hadn't known existed. He made mistakes. He pulled too hard sometimes. He tried to fix things he shouldn't. Once, he erased a hurtful comment from a teacher's memory so thoroughly that the man spent an entire day wandering the halls, vaguely certain he had forgotten something important. An unease gnawing at him like a mouse in the walls. Liam lay awake that night, sick with guilt, and promised himself he would never do something like that again. The weave did not punish him. It simply let him feel the shape of the consequences until he understood. Mia stayed by his side, stubborn and bright. Even when high school made everything louder and messier, she didn't know exactly what he was, not in words. But she knew enough, that he felt things deeply. That sometimes he seemed to know what people needed to hear before they said it. That he had nightmares on nights when the news was full of distant disasters. "You're a barometer," she told him once, lying on the hood of his dad's car in a field outside town, watching the northern lights flicker green and white above them. "For feelings instead of weather." He laughed. "That's not wrong." Under the lights, the weave hummed a melody older than the town, older than the country, older than the sky itself in its current shape. It reached around them like a net full of stars. "You are one of the shape," it reminded him sometimes, "but you are also just a boy in Canada, lying on a car with his friend, watching lights dance." Do not forget either part. He didn't. He was both. He was Liam, who forgot his homework and spilled cereal and tripped over his own feet. He was also Liam, who could step between seconds and touch the threads that bound minds together, who could hear the sky and answer it. He lived in Northbrook, a small town that never made the news, except for that one summer when the fires almost came. He was strange. He was ordinary. He was dangerous. He was kind. He was, in a word the weave had taught him, and he was still trying to grow into, careful. And somewhere far above him, in the high, thin places where thoughts faded into wind, the weave watched and waited and whispered, ready to answer the next time a strange, small mind called out from the edge of a cracking lake.